Hello, and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast, where we share stories of moms making impact in their own lives and in the world around them. I'm Jessica, and each week I sit down with women who are building businesses, leading communities, shaping culture, and redefining what success looks like inside of motherhood. Because motherhood does not have to stop your ambition, it can transform it. Now let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. I am so excited to share this episode this week. I recently did a podcast swap with Dr. Kelly Moline, and this is a super fun one. It's just chill, casual to moms, newer business owners, podcasters, just chatting about what things look like for us right now, what's hard, what's fun, what's unexpected, and I'm super excited to share. So without further ado, here's our podcast swap with Dr. Kelly Moline.
I'm Kelly Moline, so I'm a pharmacist and functional medicine consultant, but more importantly, I'm a mom and I'm a wife. And so, this last year, I've became a mom. And so my baby is now 13 months old now. And I started my own business when she was born, basically. I created my LLC like 2 weeks before she was born, and then my water broke early, and we had a business meeting later that day, and we were on the way to the hospital, and I had to cancel it. I'm like, I'm so sorry, my water broke. We're a little busy today. So this past year, I think I had it in my head when I built the business to start with, and I guess I can go into like what I actually do, but I'm a pharmacist and I've been at an independent pharmacy since 2020, and I did my residency at an independent pharmacy along with Texas Tech, Baylor Scott and White. I was doing a lot that year, got hired on afterwards at the independent pharmacy, and I was doing a lot of weight loss coaching, and then that brought me also to functional medicine, which is basically what that means is root cause wellness. We're doing more functional labs or comprehensive labs to look at hormones, to look at cortisol, gut health, all of that, because I kept just questioning like why isn't this weight loss coaching working for, the postmenopausal women? Why are some people on a ton of medications, but they're not necessarily getting better? They're just getting put on more medications, and it doesn't seem like there's a great end goal for them. So I kept just questioning, like, what can we learn more about the body? What can we do better for this person? And then that led me to my functional medicine course that I took. And then I got certified in functional medicine so I could really identify more of what is causing those issues, whether that is blood pressure. It's not because you're lacking a blood pressure medication, right? It's because like something else is going on in the body. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I was doing that for the pharmacy and built up a business there. So when I got pregnant, I really wanted to do that solo to be able to have more flexibility with my motherhood as well and be home more with my baby when that happened, which was definitely a great plan. And I am doing that, but I don't think I realized like how much motherhood really takes for like your time and your energy and your mind itself. And I really enjoyed that. And so when I was like in the postpartum and I was trying to learn everything about postpartum, I found other podcasts with other moms talking about it, and I really liked learning from them. And so I wanted to do that too, while still talking about like functional medicine and how we can improve our health in more natural ways, because there's so many people and women that I helped along the way that were like, you're so lucky that you know this now, because a lot of women learn it later in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they're like, wow, you're 30 and you know all this stuff. That's fantastic. And so I'm like, well, it can be more for the new mom as well, because there's so many times I get like the women who are around menopause age and a lot of their symptoms started in their 20s and 30s. And so I'm like, if we can talk to those women now and talk to them with their whole family in mind. They're just going to pass that on to their children too. So, yeah, that kind of led me to the podcast and sharing our experiences because I think that that's how we can connect. Motherhood can be sometimes isolating, and we can learn from each other, and I can learn from others as well. So, with that and the business, it's been a slow burn for sure, and I am, like, seeing clients too. I don't think it's at that capacity I first envisioned, but also in some ways, it's a lot of times a blessing because I'm able to spend so much more time with my daughter, which is ultimately what I wanted me home most of the time, so I'm like a quote unquote, working mom from home or stay-at-home mom that's a working mom, which I am working still at the pharmacy part-time. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Um
I'm so fascinated by the intersection of being in like a typical pharmacy medical model and then coming into this like intersection between like medical health and functional health with weight loss, which like I guess someone could be like, well, that doesn't make sense. But to me, it makes total sense. Like, so many people try everything and they're like, nothing's working. I'm not losing weight. And I don't know what's happening. I'm on this medication, blah, blah, blah. And I think that that intersection is really unique because a lot of people don't realize how much they don't know about functional health and eating well and supplementation and fueling your body. And you don't really know until you're in it. So I love that you're
Right.
like kind of getting ahead of it and speaking directly to the new moms or moms to be, and then obviously women on just the spectrum in general to just inform them on like what's going on in your body and what that all looks like, but also with that like pharmacy medical sense as well. Cause it can be a little overwhelming going in and being like, "Oh, so I have to change my entire diet plan and I don't know how to do that." So I love that you're
Right.
like merging those two.
Yeah. And when we think of like weight loss now, obviously there are GLP-1s, which are like all the rage, and they can definitely be used as a tool. But again, we're we're not necessarily deficient in this like medication that's out there. And we can, look at hormones, look at gut health, look at inflammation, look at thyroid, all of those things have to do with weight loss. And I was like very curious. It started a lot with just diet education. And so some people are doing it absolutely perfectly and exercising right and all the things, but they still weren't losing weight. And so I'm just like curious and a constant learner. So I'm like, why aren't they? And so I just dug deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I love that. And I think in pregnancy, we hear so much about like the different myths of like eating for two versus not eating for two or like cutting out XYZ foods and all of that. I think it can be overwhelming for moms to get so much information and then be like, oh, I have to change everything about my diet or I have to be very careful. And like being pregnant is anxiety inducing anyway. Not to mention
Hmm.
early motherhood where you're like, tied up pretty often and like thinking about making a meal is like the last on your list. So I think catching people early and just doing diet or nutrition education and like having easy snacks that you can grab from or like a go-to meal that you love, I feel like that can be so helpful. What no matter where you're at in your like woman journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm getting stuff from people all the time too, because I find myself to get into a rut sometimes. So when I see other people posting, like, I love this snack or this is an easy recipe to make, I'm like, I'm on it because we all need help there too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so interesting. So my husband owns a gym and we're in like the health and wellness field as a family. And so it's something that like we talk about all the time. But there's so many people that don't and don't even know where to start or where to look. So I feel like someone like you who has it's kind of like best of both worlds where you have the medical knowledge, but then also the functional knowledge behind it as well can be super impactful. I mean, you and even talking about GLP-1s, like you have to know the medication side of that, but then also like you need to be eating a ton of protein. You need to be drinking so much water and like balancing your hunger cues with needing to eat and all of those things like I don't think people realize that when they go to take them until they're on the other side of it and they're like, I'm starving and so thirsty.
Yeah, it's surprising, like, just counseling on the medication, and especially, I think, when it came out, and I was asking people, like, "Has your doctor talked to you about diet and exercise and what you're going to do with this medication?" And some people were really like, "My doctor said I don't need to do that since I'm gonna be taking this medication." I'm like, "It's not one or the other, it's really, like, a tool and we're always trying to use the lowest effective dose with any medication out there because it affects your body. And so we need to like use it for a certain amount of time to be able to do that. But then getting off of it is so hard for so many people to keep the weight off. And so I see so many people getting back on the medication, which isn't, we don't have to demonize that either, but like knowing what to do to be able to successfully maintain the best we can, I think is an important part that we're not talking about. And doctors only have a limited time with their patients. So I don't necessarily fault them either, but it has been kind of a quick money grab for a lot of people, whether that's doctors, whether that's pharmacies. So, yeah, I think sometimes the patient themselves gets the short end of the stick, which I hate to see too.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, what was kind of the antithesis of you starting your business? I know that you were pregnant when you were like, yeah, let's do this. But what kept you going to be like, we're doing this?
Yeah. I think every time I sit with someone and we go through it, it's so fulfilling to me and I'm really good at it to like look at their labs, create an entire protocol, whether that be lifestyle, nutrition, supplements. Every time I do it, I feel like I have so much more energy to continue my day and I'm so happy. And like, I was even at a dinner that was hosted by the Dutch test, and a Dutch test stands for dried urine testing for comprehensive hormones, and that is looking at cortisol, hormones, all of this, and it's very comprehensive and well known in the functional world, and so I went to that, a couple weeks ago just to, like, let's get a refresher. I don't know what I don't know, right? And I've been using this test for a while, but there could be more to learn. And I go and I'm surrounded by nurse practitioners and other providers. And I'm the one there that knows the most about the Dutch test and how to set, a protocol. And people like look at me like, oh, you're just a pharmacist. Why are you here? And can you even prescribe? And no, I'm not prescribing prescription medications, but I can do so much more with like lifestyle and nutrition and supplements. And sometimes I feel like I have to work even harder because I'm not kind of just going for like, here's the prescription and moving on, right? So I'm like, how do we heal the body from within so we don't need those prescriptions as often? And so, like, stuff like that, I'm like, actually, I'm really, really good at this. Maybe pharmacy wasn't where I should have like gone in school, but it's where I am now and it's what I'm doing with it. And it's really satisfying. And even when I talk to my husband, I feel like been going back and forth this past year of what our goals are, what we want to do. I get overwhelmed myself with my to-do list,
Yeah.
whether that
Yep.
be motherhood, whether that be homemaking, whether that be my business, the podcast, working at the pharmacy, all of that, and, trying to keep up with eating good, working out, the whole thing. And I overwhelm myself. And he's like, you don't have to do that. Like, we'll figure it out. And a lot of it's like, well, I'm doing it for me. I don't have to necessarily get to that place where I thought I wanted to get to with a business of like, I'm going to make this really successfully financial business where I have all these clients and this waiting list and all of that. And, maybe someday I will want to get there. But I've heard that you can have everything, but you can't have everything at once.
Yep.
Knowing that maybe when my kid is 10, 15, or even out of the house, I still have time to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you bring this up. I think it's something that I've been talking on my podcast a lot about like business ownership and motherhood and just kind of like the intersection we're at being like at the tail end of the millennial like hustle culture, six-figure business, online at home, like that whole thing. And so I really been trying to like rewrite that for myself because I'm sure like you, pretty ambitious person. My to-do list is enormous. I always have something on my docket. I'm always starting something new or putting myself into something. So I think that I have learned through like early business ownership that success doesn't have to be monetary, and
Mhm.
it just looks so different for everyone else. So like for me, I have this podcast, the Mom Making Podcast. I've had it for 5 years. And I just started in 2024 a boutique digital marketing company for small business owners. We focus on like very grassroots. So we're working with like people who are just starting their business or people who have been around for decades, but like don't know or even want to do social media or like flyers or graphic design for their company. And so we're kind of honing in on this group of people. And it has been very interesting to figure out what that balance is between like going out there and doing the marketing to make this business highly profitable or focusing like really, really hard on the people that I'm connected with now as clients and grow with them, which also allows me to prioritize being home more and having that flexible schedule. So for me, it's being able to slowly grow in whatever season I'm in right now. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's just so interesting as it evolves. Like you said, you've got a really little one. I've got a 3-year-old. He's in school 4 days a week. We have one day with that I'm home with him all day. And like for me, that's enough. I am able to see him in the morning. I see him in the afternoon. I'm home with him all day Friday and on the weekends. But then like Monday through Thursday, I'm working super hard to get the things that I need to get done so that I can be with my family. Like to me, that's
Right.
success. Not having to like clock in and clock out. And like my son was sick last week and I posted on social media, like not having to worry about like PTO or making sure my assignments were covered or whatever it might be. I think to me right now in the season that I'm in, that is success.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting to see more people who are starting businesses kind of fall into that rhythm of like what works for right now versus the I need to be a six-figure business owner by the end of the year. I think that can put so much pressure on us. And if that happens, great, I'll take it. It's as of right now isn't my goal because it's not the season I'm in. I can't I just am realistic that like I can't support that level of work right now where I'm
Right?
at.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, very much hustle culture. I think that's where we came from. But knowing where your success, like how you value your success and what that looks like, and moving away from that monetary value. And obviously, it's still there because we want to have a comfortable life in some sense or another. But like, what does that look like for a family and what are our goals for a family? And everyone I hear it's like, where would you go back to when, like, you're old? And they're always like, when my kids were little. And spending that time when they're just little and you're just with them as much as you want it to be. But so it's not something like I want to take for granted. And there's more time down the road to make a really big business if that's what I want to do at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I always say with the caveat of like, I am only able to do what I'm doing right now because I have an extremely supportive partner and he is our breadwinner of our family. So any money that I'm bringing in is extra, which I like to acknowledge because not many people have that situation. And I think that you can still build something, whatever it is that you're working on without that structure. I feel like having the building small and steady mind frame or mindset is like you can do that with whatever situation you're in. Like, yeah, you work a 9 to 5 on the weekends, do your thing as a hobby and start to scale it that way. And I love to hear the stories of people who are like, I just had this side hustle that I was like really involved in and loved doing and was able to do it so hard and so well that now I don't have to do a 9 to 5. But yeah, it's so interesting to see everybody's stories and how they get to where they're at.
Yeah, for sure. I love hearing yours as well with having a little bit older of a child and just even podcasting for 5 years. I know it isn't easy being on my side as well with my own podcast, and we're reaching a year, but there's been so many times in the past year, I'm like, "Who is this even reaching? Do people even care?" And podcasting itself is so passive. I'm a avid podcast listener, and I listened to a few of your episodes when you introduced me to your podcast, and I'm like, "I love this." Do I say anything? Not typically, right? Like, I'm not, like, messaging the host going, "I love this episode," each time. So it's hard being the podcast host and not seeing that, like, return right away and having people you're, like, seeing them listening to you. So I can't imagine. I hope I'm there, in 5 years too, and I'd love to get some tips. Right now, I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing that you've even continued." I know so many podcasts stop before 10 episodes.
Yeah. Podcasting is like a whole other side of it. I I think it's smart that you've kind of commingled your podcast and your business and what you do. Obviously, I'm sure you'll talk about like your family and personal stuff as you go on. But what has been most challenging for me is that I just started this podcast because I was interested in asking questions. I started it before I even had kids. So I was like, I want to ask all the nosy questions and like get all the tea from the delivery room. Not everyone is up for sharing their birth stories or answering questions. And I was like, whatever, I'm gonna start a podcast and get to those people. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of evolved. I've loved being able to hear people's stories at the end of the day. I think it's so valuable to like have a platform where people can just share because I think there's a real power in being able to share your story and have other people hear it and identify with it, whether you know about it or not. But the podcast has taken many turns and flips, and I feel like I'm in a place now where I'm like, okay, this year I'm hitting it hard. I've always been afraid to go out for sponsorship. So, like, I'm doing sponsorship pitches this year. I'm getting those sponsors. I'm putting myself in the room, and I have honed in a little bit more on my audience, which is just people, not people, women and mothers, not limited to, but mothers who are building something. And whether it's something small that they're doing that they feel is small to make a difference in their community, or they're doing advocacy work, or they are building a business in the middle of motherhood, I feel like those stories are so inspiring to me to hear like the beginning and end of your story and not end it's inspiring for me to hear people like how they started right in the beginning and then where they are now and where they're dreaming of going next. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm starting to focus. There are absolutely days where I'm like, I'm deleting the Google Drive and I'm done doing this. But it's like interviews like this that I love to just chit chat with people. And I started going to a model where I am podcasting once a week and putting out that episode right away, just so like I have like all the momentum. The guest has the momentum to want to share and be like, look what I was a part of. And I'm sharing my story, and doing a weekly podcast has helped me to be like, this is why I'm doing it. And yeah, it definitely ebbs and flows with everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I recently had an interview that I just posted and talking about fertility, and I interviewed a holistic fertility doctor. And because I've had so many friends and people just ask me, like, I'm trying to conceive, it's not happening as fast as I wanted to. Do you have any tips? Like, tell me everything. And so I also created a document that I'm still, like, I've shared with some close friends, but I need to, maybe put some design on it and make it pretty and share it with more people. But yeah, just being able to like learn from the expert and then share some of my story, like I put in the intro, just kind of painting the picture of the woman, the couple that so excited to start this journey of starting a family together. And they're so excited to finally, like, they're finally ready, right? So we prevent, prevent, prevent. And then once you know 100% that you're ready, this is when you start a family. And then you wait a month, you test, and it's negative. And you're like, "Wait, what?" And you're like, "Oh, wait, yeah, I know that people don't get pregnant right away," but you're still a little bit shocked, and then month after month goes, and you're like, "This isn't what I was promised at all, like, this was supposed to be exciting," and you go spiral a little bit, and you're like, "Wait, now when do I go talk to a doctor? When do I talk to fertility clinics?" And it all of a sudden becomes this, like, scary thing, and I shared on my podcast how we've had a miscarriage in the past too. So that was, just delaying everything. And then the waiting game for us was hard. So just like painting that picture came from something so personal. And I was even considering not sharing that because I felt so exposed. But I'm like, I know that there's going to be other people that share that same experience in some level or another. And even if they're considering trying in the future, knowing that they're not alone in that. And then I had a friend like reach out today and was like, "Thank you." Like, I got chills from that intro. I knew exactly like that was the podcast for me. I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much for saying that," because yeah, it's hard to sometimes share, but especially when it's part of your own life. But that's why I'm doing it, is to create that connection with other people going through similar places too.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in, like, whatever story or message you're putting out there is gonna get to the people that it needs to get to, whether that's, like, really woo-woo relying on the universe to, like, get things where they need to go, but there are so many people who have reached out to me to be like, "Oh my god, the guest you talked about," or like you said, your personal story that, like, I would never be connected to if I didn't. I think that is so cool to be able to connect with people in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. And I think it is very hard and vulnerable to share your own personal stories. And I think it can be really healing too, because I think as women, we just hold so much for ourselves and other people. And I think being able to share like your authentic story in like a raw emotional way can be very healing, and not only to you telling the story, but obviously to the person hearing it as well. It's a little different, but I shared my birth story with my son last year, and it was like an extremely traumatic story. I don't tell many people about it often, especially new moms, because I'm like, this is like the worst case scenario. Like, this will likely not happen to you. So I hesitate to tell people, but it was super. I like cried through the entire episode, but it was so healing to me to just like sit down and reflect on it. I had done so much birth processing. I had done all the therapy, and just like sitting and sharing my story and getting feedback from other people that were like, "Oh my God, I had no idea this is what happened," or "Thank you for sharing." And some people who were like, "Yeah, we had a NICU stay too, and I totally felt what you were feeling." So I think that can be healing to obviously the storyteller, but the people that are hearing it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had a NICU stay too. So
Yeah.
it was hard for sure. And having people reach out to me during that time to be like, "Hey, I'm with you. I've been there. There is the other side." And even when we had our miscarriage, like that's all I wanted to talk to with people, is like I wanted to hear their story, and especially obviously when there's a happy ending at the end of it, but, like, hearing that I'm not the only one, and so many people had a miscarriage story, and, like, we don't really talk about it, and it it feels a little bit of shame for whatever reason, but I think people are getting more comfortable talking about it now, and so I really like that. I like being able to share and hopefully help other people kinda give back. Again, I'm an avid podcast listener myself, so being able to share and hopefully it helps someone else, the listener out there too.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like it's just creating a an inadvertent community, whether you create a community with your podcast or it's just a group of people that listen. I feel like that can be so powerful too, to know that like someone else heard the same episode and felt the same thing as me, or like people are in the comments on Instagram just talking about the episode and like what resonated with them. That's super cool to be able to like be the catalyst for that.
Yeah, I agree.
So what other things are you planning to get into with your podcast and like business and all of that?
Yeah. So we've had a lot of interviews lately. I also part of the podcast is just me and my husband talking and talking about our own lives. And so I think upcoming, we're going to have a few more episodes of that with interviews still there, but more like sprinkled in and being, selective with them. Like I think I always am, but there is a lot of thought that goes into them on what we want to talk about, how it relates to functional medicine or more of that crunchy mom lifestyle. And I want people to get a lot out of it. But on the other hand, like having the connection piece with the podcast too. And it's really fun having interviews. And I don't have a lot of like these kind of conversations where we're just chit chatting. We're like talking about fertility and chiropractic, and which I absolutely love and I love learning. But having that connection piece is important to me too. And just hearing what people do on their day to day. I like listening to that. And what do your mornings look like? I have talked recently about how I'm weaning breastfeeding and, hearing other people's experience. I will find podcasts based off of like a one episode topic of like, oh, this is really what I want to hear. But then I stay because I like the hosts and I like their story. And if I never hear their story, I'm probably not going to stay because I have no connection to them. But I like, sometimes like that husband and wife podcast where you hear them interact, you hear them like banter and play with each other. And so we'll probably have a little bit more of that. I'm going to try to make the episodes a little bit shorter and sweeter. So it's a little bit more digestible when the mom is, doing dishes, folding laundry, driving to the grocery store, that kind of stuff, so that it's a little bit easier to listen and move on instead of, having an hour podcast, which I love too. But sometimes we have to split up a great interview so that it's a little bit more digestible.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what's hard about podcasting. I'm a avid podcast listener as well, but like what I'm interested in podcasting is very different than what I'm putting out. I listen to like a lot of comedy podcasts and
Hmm.
mainly true crime. So like there's a trillion true crime podcasts out there. And like you said, you're attracted to obviously the topic first, but then you stay for the host. And so I think that's really cool to be able to like put out what you're interested in, but then also like you're going to get the people that are interested in you right back, which like it's so hard because like, is anybody actually listening? Obviously, we have analytics and stuff for that, but sometimes it can feel like I'm just speaking to the void. But I think once you get like honed in on your topic and what you love to podcast about, I feel like people follow for you, which is something that which was a tough pill to swallow for me, being that I'm a guest-based podcast. I'm like, whoa, I'm not the expert. Don't don't come for me. But through like working with these different podcast networks and just learning like, hey, people are coming for you and like you're a trusted voice. I think getting over that like imposter syndrome that we all have for some reason is really interesting evolution.
Yeah, and you just posted a solo, which I listened to because I'm like, who is this host? I want to know
Yeah.
more about her. And so that was fun to listen to. Yeah, kind of putting out what I like to hear and the kind of content I like to see. Because, when starting this, I'm like, yep, it's going to be about functional medicine. Here are my topics. But sometimes it's more about parenting because I am attracted to a lot of like parenting stuff too and just hearing what they are doing. And then I like a lot of comedy. I definitely was in a true crime phase for a long time. And I haven't done it recently. I think I'm paranoid enough. So we
Yeah.
are good. But yeah. And sometimes it's like, okay, what's my in between? Or I think a lot of times we're like, okay, here's our niche. We need to stick to our niche. But having a little bit of ebb and flow can be good too. And, I'm not a podcast expert. So maybe it's not. But I like to see those numbers grow too. And just like the amount of countries that I reach randomly from the
Yeah, it's
analytics,
so
I'm like,
crazy.
what are you doing there? But I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And last year, I was named number 3 in Crunchy Mom Podcast of 2025. And then this
That's
year was
amazing.
like the top Crunchy Mom podcast. I was named number 2 of who to listen to in 2026. So I'm like, hey, someone out there is liking
Yeah.
it. That's a third party. So that's really cool to kind of get that validation when podcasting is such a passive thing too.
Yeah, for sure. What is your definition of a crunchy mom? I'd love to get into this topic.
So Crunchy Mom to me is just more of like a holistic mom. She wants to do something a little bit more naturally. I know there's wide spectrums of crunchy moms for sure. And I don't think it was until I decided that I wanted to have a home birth. I'm like, "Oh, now I'm a crunchy mom." But yeah, I think like those are the people that I seem to attract and that I'm attracted to. And I'm in like a local crunchy mom group where it is more of like the natural stuff. Medication isn't your typical first go to, which I think is funny, just being a pharmacist background. But then again, like I know the medication side. I know, like, it's not this evil thing in the background of like, I don't know what it does, but we want to stay away from it. It's like, I know what it does, and it has effects. It has good effects and it has bad effects, and it all comes with the medication. But we also know now that we can do other things that can be like before this medication that might have less, bad side effects, but can still be really helpful and be successful with that. So that's kind of my take on Crunchy Mom. Do you have a different take on Crunchy Mom?
No, mine is very similar. I um
Okay.
I am very much like try the natural way first and see what happens, but I will always relent to convenience as well. So, like if
Yeah.
it's a supplement on Amazon that's like easier or like tried and true, I will do it, but I've done like the background research on like are they an ethical company or what are their practices? My son goes to a Montessori school that's a nature-based school. They have chickens at
Beautiful.
school. I was sourdoughing for a while till my business got a little more needy of my time. But yeah, and we always joke like my husband hates going to the doctor. He hates the medical system, but we always joke like the second our son was sick, we were like, do everything, do it all. We're like, we had a planned home birth. So we like saw all the holistic health practitioners. We had our home birth stuff all set up. And it was like the second we had to transfer, we transferred. And it was like,
Hmm.
do the works. Like I got all the meds, I did all the epidural stuff that you need to do, and I don't know that that's convenience, but maybe it's more like when I have to do it, I have to do it. So,
It's
I'd love to
realistic.
have yeah, I would love to have chickens one day when we don't have a dog anymore that will eat them. I will be getting them. But yeah, usually like nature, we love to be outside. I mean, my primary care doctor is a functional medicine doctor.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it's always interesting to see everybody's, ideas or, like, definitions of crunchy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And that, like your primary care being functional, I think is kind of the perfect model because
Mhm,
the Western medicine is there for the urgency, the
mhm,
need right now, right? Like when you need to be transferred for a hospital birth because something isn't going as right as it needed to be, or the NICU, like my baby was in the NICU too, and my water broke early. So I didn't meet the 37-week criteria that Texas requires. Here we go. We go to the hospital. We're going to a hospital with the best NICU around because that is a possibility and that was the outcome. And I was glad that we were there and had that medicine when we needed it. But since then, we haven't needed any sort of medication for her, thankfully. And even like something small will happen. She's had a little bit of a cough, and my husband's like, should we bring her in? I'm like, no, I know what they're going to say. No, we're
yeah,
not. Of course it is. If I hear that like, coop or whooping cough or anything like
yep,
that, of course I would take her. But I'm like, I know what to do. So we're good. We don't need that and have her risk of being exposed to even more
mhm,
there.
yeah, yeah. Well, this has been great. Is there anything else you want to chat about?
I don't think so. I've really enjoyed this conversation and just meeting kind of like-minded moms in general and building that community, and especially in the podcasting space too. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. We'll have to do this again as we both get more into business and podcasting and all the above.
For sure.
Can you tell my guests where they can find you, social media, website, where they can find your services?
Yeah. So my social media, I'm mainly on Instagram and it's functional medicine for moms. And then my website is molinemethod.com. That's my last name, Moline. So molinemethod.com. And that is functional medicine. I also have my podcast on there and we can schedule a health analysis appointment where we review your medical history and then we can order labs that get sent to your home and then create a protocol from there, optimizing your health naturally.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then for my listeners, when I share this on my podcast, can you share yours as well?
Yes. So I am the Mama Making Podcast, AMA Mama, on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads. Threads are my new favorite. But we also have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. And then we are the mamamakingpodcast.com. So yeah, we have a new newsletter that's coming up. And yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. I love it.
If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow the podcast wherever you listen and share it with another mom building something meaningful. If you want deeper behind the scenes reflections that I don't share anywhere else, join my email list at themamamakingpodcast.com. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.